Alrighty then, and we're back dunking on Braeden Alberti. The video hasn't even started yet, and I'm already tired of dealing with this guy. This video is a part 2, by the way. Watch part 1 to understand what this whole thing is about and why I'm making this debunking video. Of course, no hate goes out to Braeden. This video, the existence of this video is a literal definition, the existence of this video is the literal definition of punching up. So I don't wish any slander on his name, nor do I plan to slander him. Please do not harass him in my name as well. This is all fair criticism I want to give him to improve his channel. Without further ado, let's get into it.
Episode 7. We're almost there. The end is in sight. We start the
I feel you, man. I am so done with you.
We start the episode with the super fun trial of Wula Syndulla, the general who disobeyed orders and led people to their deaths in order to save the Jedi who already saved herself by choosing not to die while drowning in the ocean for an entire day.
Ah yes, because going to stop a criminal on a ticking clock is so irresponsible. By this logic, cops should be properly dealt with for every crime they go to stop before filing sin beforehand.
Are we to believe any of it?
Then we have an extensive back and forth over whether or not the things that just happened actually happened. All this to say that the New Republic that the likable characters fought so hard to obtain has already been corrupted within its first 5 years of being established. Super cool. It really makes that whole war feel worthwhile. I give the credit of this scene to the prequel fans. You insist endlessly that your poo doesn't stink, and your voices have been heard. Because now the political scenes are back, baby.
I don't think anyone wanted the political scenes from the prequels back. Plus, Ando exists.
That this is a boot to the throats of all Gormans, who've done nothing more than request their basic rights.
Where's your video on that?
See, there's a surprise minefield. Fortunately, these mines pale in comparison to the great power of the mighty space whale, so naturally, Ahsoka decides that now is a good time to abandon the safety of the space whale so that she can struggle to avoid the danger herself and feed us the illusion that something exciting is happening on screen.
You don't think she would assume that the whales want to get out of harm's way as soon as possible? Thus why she left them out to not put them in danger anymore? Or made sure she wasn't around in the event that they jumped? Oh, would you look at that?
Dash. As they talk, she continues to avoid bringing up the impending Second Civil War that she has been causing because she would still prefer to be happy.
Gee, it's almost as if that's how she's been characterized. As in, she was written to be like this on purpose.
Guys reappear to give the illusion of excitement. Captain Face asks Thrawn if they should prepare their defenses, but Thrawn wisely says no, because his genius plan is to throw an easily defeatable batch of stormtroopers at them. So wise, so original. Darth Santa and Darth Eilish are also still in this story, and their master plan is to split up and attack with an easily defeatable squad of bandits. This is a great plan, because it'll pad out the episode to a 40-minute runtime.
It's literally 2 Jedi and a Mandalorian. If anything, the soldiers they send out are overkill. You, as the audience member, know about plot armor, but the characters in-universe don't. And in case you really are as dumb as you sound, Jedi aren't unkillable. You do know that, right?
Purpose in this story is to provide cover in an otherwise open field. Thankfully, the eggs are indestructible, so there is never any danger.
Wanna play that for me again?
Their egg ships and fade into the background, as their new purpose in this story is to provide cover in an otherwise open field. Thankfully, the eggs are indestructible, so there is never any danger.
And ignoring your brain dead take, what is wrong with the eggs having a hard shell Ezra very clearly says in the episode that the snail people are a peace-loving people. It makes sense that they would try and have high defenses. Just because they're peace-loving doesn't mean they're dumb or naive. They do know that they can be attacked by enemies. So it makes sense that their shells or egg homes would have high durability to them to withstand attacks from the raiders. They don't just have soft homes. What are you on about? Like, actually think before you speak.
Sabine tries to give Ezra his old lightsaber, but he refuses it because he says it belongs to Sabine now, and he only needs the power of bullshit to succeed.
Take it!
No, and he only needs the power of bullshit to succeed.
Take it!
I gave it to you. It's yours now.
At least take a blaster.
No. The Force is my ally.
Look, I don't like this scene as much as the next guy, but I absolutely refuse to believe this guy has watched anything Star Wars related that has the Force if he can say brain-dead things like this. His watch history must be Andor, Solo, Rogue One, and The Bad Batch, and then he called it a day.
Means we have an unused lightsaber just sitting in her pocket while Ezra draws this fight out and makes it last way longer by only using his tumble attacks. You'd think that someone who chooses to only fight by using the Force would have the power to grab all enemies at once and send them into the ocean, but no, gently pushing them will give the show a longer runtime.
I agree at this point, and had you just said this, I'd give you a pass, but you just called the foundation of Star Wars bullcrap, so I know you're being disingenuous again.
Then they decided to fire into the open air against stationary targets that they had several minutes to aim at, and who are only a couple feet away. They're feeding the meme because stormtroopers can't aim. The best villains are ones that are funny and can't physically harm the heroes, right? That is what made the first film so iconic.
First of all, that clip is from the second Star Wars movie, so you're wrong again on that term. However, finally, a valid critique.
Ezra eventually takes and uses the stormtrooper's gun, meaning he has no true convictions here, and he could have saved a lot of time by using a weapon from the start.
Again, another valid critique. Where was this Braeden in the last video? Also, to any naysayers, I'm highlighting these clips to show you that I'm fair, and I'm not simply hating on Braeden for the sake of it. It's just that a huge percentage of these videos are so imbecilically dumb that I have to call them out.
Ignore the fact that there wouldn't even be a conflict if I would just kill my enemies when they were vulnerable, instead of giving them everything they want, while also constantly provoking them into battles that they can easily win.
Bad choreography aside, what part of that battle was easy?
She did not cry, she did not show any remorse whatsoever. Instead, she made a deal with the enemy that could result in the resurgence of the Galactic Empire. And instead of telling Ezra any of this information, she went with him on a joyride with the snails, because she literally just wanted to be happy for a while.
Sabine?
Hey, I just want to be happy that I found you.
Sabine is an idiot.
Gee, it's almost as if that's how she's been characterized. As in, written this way on purpose.
Oh, hello? Anybody home? Hey, think flying fish.
Oh, final episode. Don't worry, guys. We're almost done. We're almost done with this hellhole.
Of going home. And now, finally, we've reached the last episode. We open with Thrawn, and I just noticed that they painted their Star Destroyer, but they never bothered to fix the holes.
If you watched Rebels, you know the cartoon you so claim to have watched and are annoyed that this show isn't following its canonicity to, you would know that Thrawn's ship, the Chimera, was already painted before he was banished to the other galaxy. They did not paint it in the 10 years they were there, and they did not fix the holes because they had no materials to use them. You dunce! Honestly, guys, you have no idea how fun it is to dunk on Braeden when he is so obviously wrong. This complaint is non-existent.
We get some lore about how Huyang trained Ezra's master and is very old. They don't explain how he ended up in this show, but it's at least some fun trivia.
First of all, Huyang never trained Kanan. He just said he was there when Kanan was building his lightsaber. Second, why do these questions about Huyang matter? Again, does this affect the story or your enjoyment, or I guess in this case, dissatisfaction with the show? No? Then why does it matter?
Train your mind. Train your body. Trust. And the Force.
These writers should work in politics.
No, they shouldn't, cause they are writers, not politicians. I'm sorry, this is a small side tangent, but I've never understood why fans or I guess viewers of a show always expect the writers to delve into politics as if they're running for elections. This has the same energy as me asking Braeden, you, movie YouTuber, wanna be a doctor? Well, and Braeden responds like, well, all my medical knowledge comes from Grey's Anatomy and the Good Doctor TV show. So sure, why not? Like, do you see how the dots just don't line up here? Second, one of the most repeated lines in all of Star Wars, and you choose to call it out here? The cherry picking is real.
Unfortunately, they need to maintain this snail's pace so that Ezra can build an entire lightsaber, while Sabine keeps his old one in her pocket while she uses her guns.
Again, I agree. How many times are you going to repeat the same point in the same video, no less?
The Star Destroyer launches a full barrage straight down on them, but they have space horses, so it's chill.
Yes. Space horses. Braeden truly is our galaxy's biggest clown.
No problem cutting her down in record time, and because that would make too much sense, they decide to split up, and Ahsoka fights her alone while the other two run ahead. Genius.
Again, another valid criticism. See, I don't blindly defend this show.
Sabine is now a prodigy force user who can lift a whole person several feet away when just a lightsaber was tough to move a couple minutes earlier.
Size matters not. Look at me. Judge me by my size, do you?
I'm diverting all power to the engines. Now.
So Thrawn just barely gets away, and even though we saw other ships get instantly shredded when they're too close to this galaxy jump, Ahsoka's ship has plot armor, so it doesn't get damaged at all.
Hey, do you guys remember in the last video when I told you to keep this clip in mind?
It makes a big boom that kills all the rebels that don't have names.
Again, keep this scene in mind for his next video. Well, this is what I was talking about. Braeden's worst lie. This is blatant scene manipulation. The ships didn't get shredded, they crashed into each other. Every other ship that was next to another that was in the jump radius was only distorted, like the Ghost. Here's what really happened.
Why the fuck you lying? Why you always lying? Oh my god, stop fucking lying.
Gives Ahsoka a spooky speech about how she's just like her master, and he declares victory before booping away. Darth Island.
Oh, so you did understand the theme of the show. And now, ladies and gentlemen, we enter a lightning round. Now, you see, because Braeden is someone who clearly does not have any media literacy whatsoever, naturally, he has a lot of questions at the end of the show. A lot of questions pertaining to the nature of the show and the stuff that happens in it. So I'm going to try my best to answer as many as possible and just point out how some of them just are dumb and not worth your time at all, especially when it comes to thinking about them.
Ever find out? Probably not. And this is the end of Ahsoka Season 1. Wow, what an important and super relevant show. In reaching the end of this series, I feel that we're left with just a couple questions. What does it mean that Thrawn is back? What was...
Well, to answer that question, very simply, if you just watch the show, it means that we're gonna get another galactic civil war. And now the characters in the main galaxy have to fight against Thrawn.
So can Sabine do now that they're trapped in this other world?
Well, that's for Season 2 to answer. And even if Season 2 doesn't answer it, it still makes sense canon-wise. Ahsoka isn't in the sequel trilogy, so this could be a very fitting answer as to why she's not there.
Anakin have to do with this? Why did...
Anakin has to do with this show simply because, as I pointed out in the previous video, and as you've clearly forgotten by the end of this show, this is Ahsoka's story, following her growing out of Anakin's shadow, becoming her own person, and again, becoming her own mentor or master to Sabine, much like how Anakin was her master in the Clone Wars.
Does Sabine need to be a Force user? Why must she...
Simply enough, Sabine doesn't need to be a Force user. That was a change I was not fully on board with. I think she was good enough as a Mandalorian. However, in this show, there clearly are plans for her to be a Force user. And considering that both she and Ahsoka are stuck in the other galaxy, there's clearly going to be more master-apprentice stuff that they're planning for them in the future. Again, something for Season 2 to answer.
She always take her helmet off and always get shot in places where she's bulletproof?
Simply, this one I feel like in-universe, no good reason. This is a very dumb plot hole. Out of universe, the actress needs to have FaceTime. Otherwise, the legal suits get involved.
Why stab her with a lightsaber if she isn't going to be crippled by it? What?
Buddy, I don't know if you know this, but she was damaged by the lightsaber, and we do see her being hospitalized. She isn't crippled by it because, well, the lightsaber didn't hit her in any vital organs. Clearly. We've seen other characters survive lightsaber wounds, by the way. Sabine isn't the first.
Why make her punch robots?
Yeah, this is a very dumb one. Like, the only answer here is that Sabine was dumb. That or the writers just didn't know. They wanted a cool choreography fight scene for no reason.
What does retconning her into being a Jedi add to this world?
She was never retconned into being a Jedi. She became a Jedi in this series, but she always had the potential to wield the Force. Much like how every living creature in the galaxy has the potential to wield the Force. Do not make me play that clip for you. This show is just showing us how Sabine became a Jedi. She was never retconned into this position. She was always a Mandalorian first, Jedi second.
Why does the New Republic need to be instantly corrupted as soon as they take power?
They are not corrupt. They are naive, or I guess blissfully unaware, or willfully ignorant, but not corrupt.
This world. Why does the New Republic need to be instantly corrupted as soon as they take power? And why did they make it so that Hera, Ula, has to disobey orders in order to get stuff done, while also
Simply because if she didn't disobey orders, we would not get to see more of her character. Simple writing stance. However, if that's not good enough for you and you want a good in-universe answer, Hera disobeys orders simply because she wants to figure out the truth and the New Republic doesn't want to. The New Republic does not want another war simply because they are very content with winning the last one. This, of course, has disastrous consequences for them 25 more years down the line. So, of course, in universe, it's just this show cleaning up the mess of the sequels. So if you want to get mad at someone, get mad at the sequels.
Bring zero consequences when most other people would get shot for doing such things. Why not just have a united republic? Why?
Hera wasn't instantly shot because she did not resist arrest. If she did not resist arrest or do anything that was treacherous against her nation, then they could put her up for trial, which is what she went through, and she got out of that trial because Leia gave her a hand. As for why we don't have a united republic, again, how is that this show's fault? Blame the sequels for that. They're the ones who introduced the New Republic. What are you waffling about, my dude?
Did she bring her child to the front lines? Why did they write it so that the child...
She brought her child into the front lines because, again, it was a quick emergency situation and she did not have anyone to leave the child with. That's the answer we have. It's not the best answer. The show could have provided some context to it, but it's what we can decipher. You know, if you just bother to think about what you're watching instead of looking for nitpicks and plot holes.
Just knows how to use the Force and can teach it to his mother when we were shown very clearly that it's not meant to work that way. Why?
How do you think Jedi discover Force-sensitive kids to begin with? How do you think Anakin won that pod race in The Phantom Menace before Qui-Gon took his blood? You are actively ignoring the rules of this world you claim to be so loyal to.
Give these characters 2 to 3-on-1 advantages, only for them to split up every time. Why not?
This is a fair enough take. The choreography in this show is not amazing. Aside from episode 4, I'll give you a valid point for that.
Just have them fight together against equally competent forces, instead of having everyone make the dumbest decisions possible in order to brute force the scene that you want. Why is Hu Yang here with no explanation? What?
How many times are we going to talk about this? Why is the fact that Hu Yang is here, a guy you don't even know, because let's face it, you haven't watched the Clone Wars, even matter to you? How does this affect your enjoyment or the plausibility of this show?
The space whales, why can they travel across galaxies?
We are not having this discussion again. But just to briefly address your question, this question carries the same weight as asking why the space worm in Empire Strikes Back exists, or why wizards exist in Lord of the Rings, because that's how this fantasy universe works. It's a creature that exists in this universe that, if you compare it to real world creatures, still has some plausibility to it. It's a space whale that travels from planet to planet. Space is big, so they need a way to get to those planets very quickly. Oh wow, they can travel through hyperspace. That's a genius way of doing it. What is your freaking issue with the space whales?
Why put the progression of your entire plot on a completely blind gamble with no logic or reasoning whatsoever? Why make them lead?
I am not answering this question. I literally answered it in the last video. There was no blind luck or logic to it. Yes, there was a bit of luck, but the logic is not completely unfounded. They know that the space whales travel to the other galaxy when they're set to die. Ahsoka just asked them to take her there.
the galaxy if the new galaxy is no different from the old one? Why not just put Thrawn on a hard-to-reach planet, the same way you did with Palpatine? Why
That's a fair enough take. I honestly have nothing much to argue against there.
snails? Why have them speak the same languages as people from another galaxy? Why have...
My brother in crime.
Where have they been shown to speak the same language? All they know is Ezra's name. I debunked this in the last video, so I'm really not in the mood to go over this again.
everywhere? Why make it so that it takes forever for anyone to accomplish any simple task? Why not write fun adventures instead of having your characters sit around and do nothing?
I mean, if you're gonna ask about why it takes so long for characters to do things, I mean, I feel like you haven't watched this show because characters are doing things. There's the detective work in the first 2 episodes, there's a traveling to the other galaxy in episode 4, 5, and 6, and then of course we have the final battle in episode 8. The only time where you could argue that the characters were taking their sweet time to do things was episode 7. But that's 1 of 8. What are you waffling about? And as for fun adventures, again, some people could have found this show fun. Just because it wasn't fun to you doesn't mean it's fun to them. This carries the same weight as this thing is objectively bad, quote. Like, something is objectively bad if, like, say the camera died while filming. That's objectively bad coordination. But, like, if you're talking about the writing, that is completely subjective, unless there are full-on plot holes you want to point out, in which case we can go over that day and night. But just to say, like, oh my gosh, the vibe of this movie wasn't good enough for me, my brother in Christ, it's the vibe. If it didn't fit you, it didn't fit you. Make it make sense.
Why put Ahsoka in scenarios where she should absolutely be dead if you have no intention of killing her? Why did you make her wake up 3 times in a row? Why is this old man in every
I already talked about Ahsoka waking up in the water and the land in the world between worlds in the last video. Please go watch that again. I kind of need the views.
show? Why
Hey, that is Carson Tava. Put some respect on his name.
have false Jedi if they just act like Sith anyway? Why
Because there's absolutely no law reason for them to be Sith. Them being Sith would break the canon you claim to care so deeply about. Again, because this show is a sequel to the movies and you clearly love comparing this show to the movies, please explain to me how in the world these guys would be Sith. I want to know.
like Sith anyway? Why make so many inconsequential fight scenes where nobody dies on either side?
You heard it right here, folks. Braeden Alberti does not like fight scenes unless someone dies in them. Bro would absolutely hate the prequels. I mean, he kind of does, but like, he would just hate the prequel fight scenes in general. And I'm pretty sure he also hates some of the original trilogy fight scenes. He must hate the fight scene between Luke and Vader in episode 5, because no one died in that fight scene, clearly. Honestly, I feel like the only fight this bro might genuinely like is Obi-Wan versus Vader in episode 4 and Luke versus Vader in episode 6. And even then, Luke doesn't kill Vader, so if anything, he might hate that fight scene as well. Genuinely, bro might only like 1 lightsaber fight in all the 9 movies. God damn. I mean, how are you even a Star Wars fan at this point?
Why make zombie stormtroopers if they just act like normal stormtroopers?
It's because of a new aesthetic. That is simply it. They just want to have a new variation of stormtroopers. I did not see you complain about the Death Troopers. I did not see you complain about the First Order Troopers. So I don't see any reason as to why you're going to complain about the zombie stormtroopers.
Why the tumble tactics? Why establish that the fate of the galaxy?
Tumble tactics, i.e. using the Force. How dare a Jedi use the Force?
Galaxy's on the line. If you're going to make your heroes this slow and uninterested, why set up the big mystery of Thrawn and Ezra's survival? If you're just going to reveal them right away, why make them go missing?
Right away? What the hell? It took us 6 episodes to find Thrawn and Ezra. What do you mean right away? And if you mean as soon as they get on the planet, well, that doesn't really carry the same weight to it. When Baylan and Morgan landed on the planet, Thrawn was not there at the temple waiting for them. They had to meet They had to meet the Night Sister mothers, and then the Night Sister mothers had to summon Thrawn to them. Thrawn was not in the area. They did not find him immediately. As for Ezra, we clearly see Sabine did not find him immediately. She had to walk a bit, fight some bandits, and then find Ezra. You could say that arguably, yes, they should not have been that close to them, but it's not like they landed on the planet and saw them immediately. Again, what are you yapping about?
So long without having them undergo any significant changes. Why reveal them so soon if they're just going to sit around and do nothing for most of the show? Why have him free Sabine from captivity if he wants her dead?
I feel like with those 2 previous points, you kind of wanted them to subvert our expectations, and knowing you and Star Wars fans in general, they hate having their expectations subverted. If anything, they probably played it safe, just so because they knew you would still complain about the changes anyway.
Why send her to Ezra if you want them both dead? Why alert Ezra to your...
Again, they probably sent her to Ezra just so they could kill them both at the same time. However, I'm not gonna disagree. There is merit to killing Sabine and killing Ezra later on or leaving him behind. Again, that's kind of the script's problem. That's an actual valid criticism.
Plans, if you don't want him to know your plans? Why antagonize Ahsoka into finding and attacking you if she would otherwise just sit there and do nothing? Why did you put a face on the stormtrooper? Why does this show...
Ahsoka was always going to find Thrawn. The plan was always to find Thrawn and get Ezra and Sabine out of there. Even if she sat in the asteroid field for days, she was gonna get out at some point, alright? She was gonna fight Thrawn anyway. And as for why they put the face on the stormtrooper, again, aesthetics. It was just to make him look cool. If you don't like it, fair enough. As for why this show is called Ahsoka, guess who the main character is, my brother?
Zist, why did you make any of this? Just why? This is a...
Why they made any of this? Simple. Simple. Not only is it because Dave Filoni felt like he wanted to tell a story about Ahsoka carrying over from her character growth in the Clone Wars and Rebels, but this show, on a meta level, serves as a precursor to the new Dave Filoni film that he's directing, which a lot of people are calling Heir to the Empire, but it's a precursor to that film in which Thrawn is the main villain. And if we don't have an explanation for how Thrawn got back into the main galaxy, you'd complain about that. That is why this show exists, to set up the next thing. And if you're gonna complain that this show is setting up the next thing and that, it should stand on its own merit and it's a bad show because it's setting up a new thing, let me just remind you that you're a Marvel fan, my dude. You are an MCU fan. And even if we're not talking about post-Phase 3 MCU, you still like the other MCU movies that built into each other. And before you give me the excuse of each one was their own story, just remember that Ahsoka Season 2 is mostly going to focus on the plan on Peridea without referencing Thrawn. There's a very high likelihood of that happening, so I don't want to hear it, Mr. Hypocrite. I'm done here. I left you my message on how and why you should be better in my last video, Braeden. It's up to you on whether or not you want to take that criticism or not. Money does have a louder voice than me, so it's very unlikely that you will, if you even see this video. Either way, I'm not watching any more of his content. The rest of you are more than welcome to, but the amount of cynicism and manipulation here is just too much for me to handle, and I honestly cannot even take the negativity in his later videos. Please know what you're talking about, and for the love of God, stop lying to your audience. Be better. Good night. Please go back to talking about Marvel, since clearly that's the only thing you have any semblance of knowledge of.